You'll see this post probably once or twice a month on r/getting bigger. Someone will comment or make a post saying they have steel cord and it makes it very hard for them to gain length. And then you have a bunch of newbies freaking out thinking that they also have steel cord, and that's probably not the case. And this video is going to explain why you probably don't have steel cord, why it's always misdiagnosed, and what you can actually do to treat steel cord. But first, we got to pay some bills here at Peak Male Physique. So in the description below, you can find my body of work, BD's Big Book of Length and Girth Expansion Pack. These are living documents, so you can get my up-to-date definitive thought process on penis enlargement without all the speculation here on the YouTube channel. So if you're struggling to follow along with my constant flip-flopping on opinions and just the disorganization of YouTube in general, check out my description. Check out my books in the description below. And then at Leviathan, we have 3 new supplements: Fortitude for libido, we have Shield for nerve support, and then we have Safeguard for soft tissue support. Hank will have a much more in-depth video than I could ever make on the supplements at hand. So be sure you check that out when it comes out. I will post it on your feed when it comes through. Also, like and subscribe. I actually forgot something. Like and subscribe, so that way I can stroke my ego a bit, okay? Now back to the scheduled programming. So, what exactly is steel cord? And lucky for you guys, I bought a male pelvis diagram to explain this a little bit better. So, we have the penis, right? Then we have the corpus spongiosum, that's this part here. And then we have the glands. Then, where the steel cord resides is going to be in the tunica albuginea between the corpus cavernosum. So that's going to be the 2 heads you see here. Inside that is going to be the septum. And that's basically where the tunica albuginea will fill in any dead space between the corpus cavernosum chambers and basically create 2 separate wrappers for the corpus cavernosum. The corpus cavernosum, since it's 2 chambers, and the septum are responsible for the shape of the human penis. Since it is 2 tubes put together, it's going to be wider rather than it is going to have depth. So that's why most men go out like this rather than like this, because we have 2 chambers, and that's partially because the septum allows for it. The septum is going to be a little bit thicker than the tunica, to a lot thicker than the tunica in certain spots, mainly between the top and bottom. So the top is going to fill in the dead space between the corpus cavernosum chambers, and the bottom part of the septum is going to fill in the dead space between the corpus spongiosum and the corpus cavernosum. So the theory goes that if you somehow strengthen the septum of the penis, you will make it extremely difficult to gain length. Since it's thicker there, it's going to get exponentially stronger than the rest of the tunica. Is that true? Probably not, but it is possible to stress it out enough to make it kind of harden. But it is much more uncommon than you think. Again, steel cord is not common at all. I would say out of the 100 people that would say they have steel cord, only 30 of them actually have steel cord, just because it doesn't really make sense in a biological sense unless you're doing very heavy hanging, really pushing the overall workload. So you're trying to do a lot of progressive overload to suit, and that's what's going to give you that strength adaptation of the collagen fibrils, rather than just the growth of the collagen, because that's really what we're going for with penis enlargement: growth of the collagen fibrils rather than strength of the collagen fibrils. Depending on how much weight you do and how often you do it, you'll get a different relationship of strength to mass. In most cases, the tunica and the septum will get strong at the same rate, unless you severely compromise the tunica albuginea with constant work. And then the septum, since it's thicker, it will have more resilience to start. But since it's the main thing that's getting worked instead of the tunica albuginea, that's why it gets stronger than the tunica albuginea faster, because you've worn out the tunica albuginea before the septum. So if that's not a good reason to take breaks, I don't know what is. There might also be a difference in collagen ratios to elastin ratios in certain individuals, and that might play a role with how strong the septum is. Just because there's going to be more densely packed with collagen, it would be slightly stronger compared to the elastin to collagen ratio of someone else. I'm not sure if that will actually lead to a higher rate of steel cord in individuals or not. But basically, if you have not hung over 15 pounds in your life, you probably don't have steel cord. The most common issues that can feign pelvic floor strain is going to be an overactive pelvic floor. So a lot of the times there'll be guys that are just relatively tense. When you pull out on your penis, you might get a stretch reflex where your pelvic floor flexes, making it seem like your penis is not stretching. You could probably do it now. So if you hold your penis and then kegel lightly, you will feel it retract. That happens during hanging subconsciously to some individuals. Will have a thicker dorsal vein than other men, and it'll stick out while they're hanging. A lot of people think that's the steel cord since it feels so tight under pressure, but trust me guys, the veins are very weak compared to the tunica albuginea. It is definitely stretching, it is just taut. Just like if you pull on a rope too tight, it will get very, hard to push in. That's the same idea with the dorsal vein. It is just there. Let's see, what else? Tight ligaments. Now, a lot of men will see it'll feel like their penis is not stretching, but like the underside of their penis is. That's actually the fundiform ligaments. Unfortunately, it's not on this model, but there'll be a girdle that goes around the bottom of the penis here. So all the way around, and then if you pull down or straight out, you can feel it stretch from time to time. And if it's very tight, that's the only place you will be feeling any elongation. That is also not steel cord. The main takeaway here is that steel cord is near impossible to feel just because of its location on the penis. It is under the skin, under the dorsal veins, under the tunica albuginea. You would not be able to touch it with your fingers. And then on the other side, you have to go through the corpus spongiosum along with the skin. So it's going to be very hard to self-diagnose. So you have to rule out the other three: tight ligaments, tight pelvic floor, tight dorsal vein, before you can actually figure out if it is steel cord. Treatment of steel cord is actually kind of simple. It's just kind of the pain in the ass at the same time. So first and foremost, we want a lot of heat. Heat literally melts collagen. What it does is it denatures the protein structure. The hydrogen bonds break apart at temperatures beyond 105 degrees Fahrenheit in proteins. So if we're trying to make the collagen fibrils weaker, if we can cause the hydrogen bonds that hold them together and keep its shape fall apart, it'd be easier to pull apart. It's like taking off the glue of something before you try to break it apart. There is a difference in heating pads. You want, for this in particular, something where you can see the diodes. Correct something. I originally said in the original take of this video that you want to have a heating pad with exposed diodes. I talked to someone after I filmed this, perv, who actually makes heating pads, and he said it doesn't really matter as long as the covering of the heating pad is thin enough to allow infrared heat to get through. So you really gotta make sure you just get a good quality infrared heating pad to make sure that it will work for this purpose. You're probably going to want a relatively expensive heating pad for this. I'm pretty sure Massive Novelties is selling one with exposed diodes. Not a product plug or anything. It's just I'm pretty sure Massive Novelties has the heating pad that would work well for this. You can probably find the same thing on Amazon. Now, if you don't want to spend, let's say 60 to 100 bucks on a heating pad, a normal heating pad will work. You'll probably just need a lot more time with it on, just because you need to get that heat deep into it, since it's not going to be like microwaves or infrared waves heating up the tissue. It has to basically ooze into the tissue rather than just get every single tissue radiated. So it just takes longer. Then we're going to do bundled stretches. Now, I'm not a big fan of bundled stretches in general, but someone on the Reddit posted a paper showing that biaxial stretching led to more collagen production. It is not necessarily what we want at this given time, but since we are trying to work the septum, And since it's so good at elongating, it's probably a good way to come at it from a different angle. So imagine this is your penis. You're going to take your penis, pull it a little bit tight, twist, 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 and then really focus on the twist. So instead of pulling it out as hard as you can, you want to twist it until you feel the stretch. It should be a nice, relatively pleasant stretch. It might feel a little weird, never painful. That is the key thing. None of this should be painful. You'll feel the stretch near the insertion point of your penis. But since we are causing the inside of the penis to twist too, we will see more biaxial stretch on the septum, and we'll also see some shear stress on the septum, which will then help it break apart any really stuck together collagen fibrils. And now this part is a bit bro science, but there's a potential need for low tension after your main part of your session. So I'm not saying like all day stretching where you need to heal in an elongated state, but if we stay stretched out for about 30 minutes to 2 hours after our session, we're kind of coaxing that tissue into staying elongated instead of, tightening back up completely. Granted, since it's a collagen protein, it'll eventually come back together, but we're trying to teach it to relax a bit. And that's going to help with length down the line. And again, you could probably cut that part out. That's the bro science part, and still see relatively good results with this. But for the routine, we're going to do 20 to 30 minutes of heating with a good IR pad, infrared pad, at 110 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That could potentially cause some burning if you're not careful. 43 to 48 degrees Celsius. And then if you're getting a normal copper coil heat pad, you're going to want about 45 minutes of heating without PE for both the infrared heating pad and the coil-based heating pad. Basically, we're just trying to heat up that tissue as much as we can before we even attempt to work it. So that way the collagen fibrils are very weak to start. Then we're going to do typical elongation, more sets the better. So if you want to follow something like the interval length protocol and do that with heat, that's the important part, by all means go for it. But the main takeaway, 10 to 40 minutes of elongation work, more sets the better. This part you're probably going to want a device for, so that way you're not stretching manually with a heating pad. That sounds kind of like a pain in the ass to me. Then we're going to do 10 to 15 minutes of bundled stretching, focusing on the twist portion rather than the pull portion. So it's a subtle but very important difference, so that way we don't hurt ourselves or potentially our pelvic floor. The bro science part, 30 minutes to 2 hours of extending or hanging at low weight, about 50 to 60% of your original workload with no heat, and that's going to kind of help it set in this shape. Now that's a little bit like hanging with fire. Actually, me and Carl, one of the mods on r/getting bigger, had a bit of debate about it on Friday. I have some research to do, I will admit, but this part is just to make sure you're teaching the septum to kind of stay relaxed rather than elongated, is a good way to think about it. So this is by no means definitive. I've never had steel cord. I have a client that thinks he has steel cord, but I'm almost positive it's not. But I'll put him on this routine to make sure that it is not. His issue is that he gains girth really easily, but length, it's very hard for him to gain girth. And it's really hard for us to find the right ratio for him right now. That wraps it up for this video. Again, I don't think most of you guys actually have steel cord, but if you do, if you're the 10% of the people that think they have steel cord, actually having steel cord, that routine is for you for free. Let me know how it goes on r/getting bigger. I'm sorry, but it's hard for me to keep track of all the comments, so I like to keep the discussions on r/getting bigger. But by all means, comment, like, and subscribe here, just so that way my ego is stroked and it helps the algorithm. Again, check out my books at Peak Male Physique, and then check out leviathansups.com for our new stack. They are available on Amazon, but you probably get a better deal at leviathansups.com.